Every morning we wake up and immediately reach for our phones, checking who liked our latest post, who commented on our thoughts, who validated our existence while we slept. Has this ever happened to you? That moment when you feel a strange emptiness after posting something online and receiving less engagement than expected. We've become actors in a play without a script, desperately improvising for applause that never quite satisfies. Have you ever noticed how exhausted you feel at the end of each day, not from productive work, but from the constant performance of simply existing in modern society? That nagging feeling that you're living for an audience that doesn't even exist. The ancient Stoics would look at our digital age with profound concern. They understood something we've forgotten, that true power comes from within, not from the scattered opinions of others. While we frantically post, share and comment, hoping for validation from strangers who wouldn't cross the street to help us if we needed it, we're draining our most precious resource, our authentic energy. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might fundamentally change how you approach each day. This isn't just another self-help lecture. It's a practical philosophy that emperors, slaves, and some of history's most influential figures used to remain unshakable in chaotic times. Look around you. We've created a society where appearance trumps substance, where seeming successful matters more than being fulfilled. We carefully curate our social media personas while our real selves wither in neglect. We've become our own harshest critics, constantly judging ourselves through the imagined eyes of others who, ironically, are too consumed with their own performances to truly see us. The most insidious part? We don't even recognize the prison we've built. The bars are invisible. Notifications, likes, followers, comments, all promising connection while actually disconnecting us from our authentic core. We mistake anxiety for ambition, restlessness for passion, and external validation for genuine worth. What if there was another way? What if the solution to modern emptiness has existed for over 2,000 years, practiced by people who never knew the tyranny of social media, but understood the universal human tendency to seek approval? What if true freedom comes not from accumulating more attention, but from needing less of it? The Stoics developed a set of practices that transformed them from validation-seeking performers into self-contained individuals with unshakable inner strength. And in the noise and chaos of today's world, their ancient wisdom has never been more relevant. If you found value in these ancient Stoic principles and want to continue this journey of authentic living, hit that subscribe button now. I'm sharing timeless wisdom that can transform your daily experience in a world of constant noise. The Stoics had a powerful concept they called pro, a practice of complete attention to the present moment and deliberate care of the self. Unlike our modern obsession with broadcasting our thoughts the moment they form, this ancient discipline required something that feels almost radical today: silence. Not the awkward silence we rush to fill with small talk, but an intentional quieting of external voices to hear the wisdom within. What's most revealing about this practice is who embraced it. Consider Marcus Aurelius, the Emperor of Rome, arguably the most powerful man in the ancient world. He could have commanded attention from millions, could have had his every thought announced by heralds throughout the empire. Instead, he chose to write his deepest insights in a private journal, never intended for anyone else's eyes. His Meditations, which we only have today because someone preserved what was essentially his private diary, reveal the profound inner journey of a man who controlled the known world, yet understood that true mastery begins with self-governance. Or take Seneca, one of Rome's wealthiest and most influential statesmen. Despite his immense fortune and connections, he regularly practiced voluntary poverty and silence. He would deliberately live as though he had lost everything, eating the simplest foods and wearing basic clothes, not as some public demonstration of virtue, but as a private practice to strengthen his character against fortune's inevitable shifts. The transformation happened not in the public eye, but in the private sanctuary of his mind. This hidden truth reveals something profound about personal growth that most influencers and thought leaders today miss entirely. The most significant changes in your mindset often happen in complete obscurity, witnessed by no one. The deepest revelations emerge not from broadcasting your journey, but from moments of quiet reflection when you're not performing for anyone. What these ancient wisdom seekers understood is that the constant desire for external validation creates a noisy internal landscape where authentic thought becomes impossible. Every idea becomes corrupted by the question, but what will others think of this? In contrast, in silence, your true voice emerges, sometimes surprising even yourself with its clarity and insight. The impact of this approach is subtle at first, but transforms everything over time. Your decisions become aligned with your actual values rather than projected expectations. Your words carry weight because they've been tested in the laboratory of your own mind before being spoken. You develop what the Stoics called an inner citadel, a core self that remains steady regardless of external chaos. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how this ancient practice translates into modern life and the specific techniques you can implement today to reclaim your mental sovereignty in a world designed to fragment your attention. If this resonates with your experience of constantly performing rather than authentically living, write in the comments, "Building my inner citadel." What you may not realize is that your authentic power actually multiplies in silence. This isn't some mystical concept, it's a practical reality that transforms your entire experience. When you stop broadcasting every thought, feeling, and decision to the world, something remarkable happens. You create a sacred space where your true voice can emerge without distortion. The background noise of others' opinions gradually fades, not because you've become antisocial, but because you've become anchored in something deeper. Think about the people you most admire, the ones with genuine presence, the ones who speak less but somehow say more. They possess a quality that's increasingly rare, an unshakable center that doesn't wobble with every passing trend or criticism. This inner stability doesn't come from isolation, it comes from selective connection. They're not avoiding the world, they're engaging with it on their own terms rather than being pulled in 1,000 directions by external demands. Behind the scenes of every significant personal revolution is this same pattern, a deliberate retreat from noise before a powerful emergence. Just as a seed requires darkness before it can break through to light, your most authentic transformation requires periods of protected growth away from constant exposure and judgment. The journey inward isn't a detour from success. It's the foundation for sustainable achievement that doesn't leave you hollow. Yet here's the uncomfortable truth that few are willing to acknowledge. Most people will nod along with these principles, perhaps even take notes, and then continue the exact same behaviors tomorrow. The revelation that consistently separates those who transform from those who merely consume information is simple but profound. Implementation is everything. Knowledge without application creates the illusion of growth without its substance. This mindset shift, from passive consumer to active creator of your experience, is the hidden fulcrum that leverages ordinary understanding into extraordinary living. The decisions you make in private, when no one is watching and no validation is available, reveal your true relationship with these principles. Are they merely interesting concepts to discuss, or are they the operating system for your life? The impact of this distinction cannot be overstated. When you commit to yourself rather than to your public image, you develop what psychologists call intrinsic motivation, the ability to persist without external rewards. This internal engine powers you through the inevitable valleys every meaningful journey contains, when external validation is nowhere to be found and only your private commitment keeps you moving forward. What makes this approach so powerful is that it's completely within your control. You don't need anyone's permission to begin this practice. You don't need special equipment or circumstances. You simply need to make the conscious choice to value your authentic growth more than temporary validation. If you've been feeling the weight of constantly performing instead of truly living, write in the comments, choosing depth over display. The wisdom I'm sharing with you isn't just a collection of random ideas, it's a carefully structured pathway. The ancient Stoics understood that personal transformation follows a specific sequence, much like building a house requires laying the foundation before raising the walls. They called this progressive development the discipline of desire, a systematic approach to reclaiming control over what you truly want versus what you've been conditioned to chase. Each rule we'll explore builds upon the previous one, creating an unbreakable chain of self-mastery. Skip one link, and the entire structure weakens. This isn't about perfection, it's about progression. Recognizing that lasting change follows a natural order that cannot be rushed or rearranged. The foundation of this entire journey begins with what might seem like a simple decision, but is actually the pivotal moment that determines everything that follows. Rule 1. Starve the noise. The battleground for your attention begins the moment you open your eyes each morning. That first conscious choice, what you reach for, what you allow into your mind, sets the trajectory for your entire day. Most people make this decision unconsciously. They reach for their phone, immediately flooding their mental space with notifications, news, emails, and social media before they've even established their own intentions for the day. This seemingly innocent habit creates a profound ripple effect. By allowing external voices to invade your consciousness first thing in the morning, you're essentially surrendering the helm of your mind before you've even had a chance to chart your own course. The revelation here isn't just about morning routines, it's about recognizing the invisible architecture of influence that shapes your thinking without your awareness. Your mindset isn't formed in dramatic moments, but in these small, seemingly insignificant daily habits that either feed or starve the noise. The breakthrough comes when you realize that what you consistently give your attention to becomes your reality. Behind the scenes of every exceptional life is this same foundational practice, a deliberate curation of influences, not from a place of fear or avoidance, but from a profound understanding that mental diet determines mental health. Just as you wouldn't consume rotten food, why would you consume toxic information, especially during the most vulnerable moments of your day? What makes this approach so revolutionary is that it shifts you from passive consumer to active creator of your mental landscape. Instead of absorbing whatever happens to be trending, you become the thoughtful curator of what deserves your precious attention. This isn't isolation, it's intentional connection based on values rather than algorithms. If you recognize how much noise has been influencing your daily choices, write in the comments, starting my day in silence. The first 60 minutes after you wake up aren't just ordinary time, they're sacred. This golden hour contains more potential energy for transformation than perhaps any other moment in your day. Think of it as the control room where the trajectory of your next 16 waking hours gets programmed. The blueprint for your emotional state, your mental clarity, and your decision-making power is established in these crucial first moments. When you immediately reach for your phone, you're essentially handing over the controls to external operators before you've had a chance to set your own coordinates. The invisible impact of this seemingly innocent habit ripples through your entire day. Your brain, freshly emerging from sleep, is in its most receptive and impressionable state. What you feed it first creates the foundation for everything that follows. The revelation that changed my own journey came when I realized this wasn't just about productivity. It was about ownership. Those who guard their mornings own their days. Those who surrender their mornings find themselves continuously reacting to whatever waves crash against their mental shores. The difference between these two experiences is profound. One is living from your center, the other is living from chaos. But here's the deeper truth that few discuss. This external noise isn't just distracting. It creates an actual burden that weighs on your mental and emotional system. Every opinion you absorb, every piece of news that triggers anxiety, every comparison that makes you question your worth, these aren't just passing thoughts. They accumulate into what psychologists call cognitive load, draining the very mental resources you need for your most important work and relationships. Join our growing community of people building their inner citadel. Subscribe now to access more insights on mastering your mind and living with intention rather than seeking external validation. Think of your attention as a precious natural resource, like clean water. Just as we wouldn't dump toxic waste into our drinking supply, why do we allow toxic information to contaminate our mental environment? The watershed moment in personal development comes when you recognize that this noise isn't random. It's designed specifically to capture and monetize your attention without regard for how it affects your well-being. What makes this insight so powerful is that it places the agency back in your hands. You aren't helplessly subject to the algorithmic currents of modern life. You can create boundaries that protect your mental ecosystem. The revolution begins with a simple decision. The first hour belongs to you, not to the world's demands or the endless scroll of other people's highlights and crises. Behind the scenes of every exceptional achievement is this same fundamental practice, guarding the gateway to your mind, especially during these vulnerable transition moments. Not from fear, but from the profound understanding that what enters your consciousness shapes your reality. Your mindset isn't just influenced by major events, but by the steady drip of small exposures that either elevate or diminish your energy. If you've been feeling mentally drained despite getting enough sleep, write in the comments, "Reclaiming my morning sanctuary." One of the most insidious effects of this constant noise is how it corrupts your ability to evaluate your own life. When you continuously absorb others' perspectives, you begin measuring your journey against carefully curated highlight reels. Have you ever noticed that sinking feeling after scrolling through social media, that subtle voice questioning why you haven't achieved what others seem to have? This isn't random. It's the predictable outcome of mental contamination. What's happening behind the scenes is a distortion of your internal compass. Your natural ability to assess your progress gets hijacked by external benchmarks that often have no relevance to your unique path. The breakthrough moment comes when you realize how much energy you've been wasting defending yourself against criticisms that the critic probably forgot minutes later, or chasing validation from people whose opinions won't matter in a year. Epictetus, who rose from slavery to become one of history's most profound philosophers, captured this wisdom perfectly when he said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." This insight reveals a revolutionary path to freedom that goes against everything modern culture promotes. True mental wealth isn't accumulated by gathering more followers, more likes, more validation, but by needing less of it. The hidden truth is that the less external approval you require, the more internal power you possess. When your sense of worth isn't dependent on others' reactions, You gain a form of psychological immunity that allows you to take risks, speak truth, and follow unconventional paths without the paralysis of seeking permission first. The Stoics understood this at a profound level, treating their mental space as their most precious possession. They recognized that what you allow into your mind shapes everything: your decisions, your emotional state, your capacity for joy and creativity, just as you'd carefully guard your most valuable physical assets. They developed practices to protect their thoughts from random intrusions and manipulations. This revelation completely transforms how you approach each day. Instead of passively consuming whatever information happens to cross your path, you become the intentional gatekeeper of your mental environment. You develop what psychologists now call cognitive filtering, the ability to discern which inputs deserve your precious attention and which should be allowed to pass by without engagement. The journey toward mental sovereignty begins with this fundamental shift in perspective. Your attention isn't just another resource, it's the primary resource that determines how you experience every moment of your existence. When you start treating it with appropriate reverence, everything changes. Your focus sharpens, your decisions clarify, your emotional resilience strengthens. What makes this approach so powerful is that it places the locus of control within you rather than in external circumstances. You're no longer at the mercy of algorithms, trending topics, or others' opinions about how you should live. You reclaim the authority to determine what matters most in your own life. If you've felt the mental drain from constantly seeking validation, write in the comments, freedom from external approval. Now let's talk about putting these principles into action. The cornerstone habit that will transform your relationship with noise is establishing what I call the sacred morning hour. This isn't some luxury only available to the privileged few. It's a fundamental necessity for anyone seeking mental clarity and self-direction in a world designed to fragment your attention. The implementation is deceptively simple, yet profoundly powerful. Reserve the first 60 minutes after waking exclusively for yourself. No phone, no news, no emails, no social media, nothing that introduces external energy before you've established your own. This sacred boundary creates a protective space where your authentic thoughts and intentions can emerge without distortion. What happens during this hour? That's entirely up to you. Some use it for meditation, journaling, or reading wisdom literature. Others for exercise, creative work, or simply sitting in contemplative silence. The specific activity matters less than the boundary itself. The deliberate choice to begin your day by connecting with your own center rather than reacting to the world's demands. The transformation that occurs might surprise you. When you consistently protect this time, you'll notice your thoughts becoming clearer, your emotional reactivity decreasing, and your sense of agency strengthening. You'll start making decisions from a place of centered awareness rather than scattered reaction. This isn't mystical. It's the natural outcome of giving your mind space to integrate before bombarding it with input. Alongside this morning practice, begin implementing what ancient philosophers called opinion fasting, deliberately reducing your consumption of unsolicited advice and judgments. When someone offers commentary on your life choices, practice what I call the water through a screen technique. Allow it to pass through you without absorption. Acknowledge it, consider anything potentially useful, then let the rest flow away without resistance or defense. This leads to one of the most liberating practices. Stop explaining your decisions to people who don't fund your life or share your bed. The compulsive need to justify your choices to casual acquaintances, colleagues, or even family members who aren't directly affected by them drains enormous mental energy. Behind the scenes of every confident life is this boundary, the quiet discernment about whose opinions genuinely warrant your attention. The revelation that changes everything is recognizing how much of your precious life force has been squandered defending choices that require no defense. Your career path, your creative pursuits, your personal style, your daily habits, these belong to you alone. The journey toward authentic living begins when you stop auditioning for roles in other people's stories and fully inhabit the protagonist position in your own. What makes this approach so revolutionary is that it's not about isolation, but about intentional connection. By filtering out the noise, you create space for meaningful engagement with ideas and people that genuinely enrich your life. The mindset shift comes when you realize that less input often leads to more insight. If you've been exhausting yourself explaining your choices to people whose opinions don't actually matter, write in the comments, "No more unnecessary explanations." The most extraordinary transformation occurs when you consistently starve the noise. You begin to rediscover your authentic voice. This awakening happens gradually, almost imperceptibly at first. Like a room that's been filled with blaring sounds, suddenly falling silent, you notice thoughts and desires that were always present but drowned out by the cacophony of external opinions. Many people have lived with this constant background noise for so long that they've forgotten what their own mental landscape actually sounds like. The journey of reclaiming your inner voice often begins with a startling realization that many of the goals you've been pursuing, the standards you've been measuring yourself against, and the definitions of success you've adopted aren't actually yours. They're borrowed, absorbed from family expectations, social media influences, cultural pressures, and algorithmic suggestions that have been whispering in your ear so consistently you've mistaken them for your own thoughts. When this mental static begins to clear, something remarkable emerges. Clarity about what genuinely matters to you. The revelation isn't just intellectual, it's visceral. You feel it as a sense of alignment, a quiet knowing that doesn't need external validation to confirm its truth. This is the difference between pursuing what you've been told you should want versus what resonates at the core of your being. The mindset shift is profound. You stop asking, "What will impress others?" and start asking, "What actually brings me alive?" Your decision-making transforms from externally referenced to internally guided. The discovery process might surprise you. Passions you abandoned years ago resurface. Creative impulses you've been suppressing find expression, and you develop an almost compass-like sense for choices that truly serve your growth. Now let's make this practical. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and your path to mental clarity starts with one decisive action. Identify and eliminate one significant source of noise in your life today. Look for the low-hanging fruit. That news app sending anxiety-inducing notifications throughout your day. That person in your circle who always has something negative to say about your choices. That social media account that reliably makes you feel inadequate after viewing it. This isn't about dramatic gestures or complete disconnection. It's about strategic elimination of the inputs that consistently drain rather than nourish you. The revelation comes not just from what you remove, but from what you notice in its absence. Mental space. This newfound clarity creates room for deeper thinking, more intentional choices, and reconnection with the quiet wisdom that's always been within you, waiting for enough silence to be heard. Behind the scenes of this practice is a powerful psychological principle. Attention is your most valuable resource, and whatever captures it shapes your reality. By deliberately curating what gets access to this precious resource, you're essentially designing the architecture of your consciousness. If you're ready to create space for your authentic voice to emerge, write in the comments, clearing the mental static. Now, we arrive at the second powerful rule that will transform your relationship with yourself. Move like nobody's watching. This principle strikes at the heart of what keeps most people trapped in mediocrity. Right now, there's an invisible audience sitting in judgment of everything you do, every decision you consider, every risk you contemplate, every authentic impulse you feel. These spectators critique, question, and often condemn your choices before you've even made them. The most liberating revelation: most of these judges don't actually exist. They're projections, mental constructs you've created based on past criticisms, childhood conditioning, and social programming. You've internalized these voices so completely that you can't distinguish between their judgments and your own authentic desires anymore. Think about the last time you were on the verge of doing something bold, starting that creative project, changing careers, expressing an unpopular opinion, or simply dressing in a way that truly reflects your personality. What stopped you? If you're honest with yourself, it wasn't lack of ability or resources. It was the paralyzing weight of imaginary eyes watching, waiting for you to stumble, ready to say, "I told you so," when you inevitably fall short. This phantom audience creates what psychologists call the spotlight effect. The exaggerated belief that others are paying far more attention to your actions and appearance than they actually are. The transformative truth that can set you free is this: most people are too occupied with their own insecurities and challenges to spend significant mental energy judging yours. They're starring in their own movies, not watching yours. Behind the scenes of every remarkable life is this same journey. The gradual liberation from performing for an audience that exists primarily in your own mind. The mindset shift occurs when you realize that the person watching you most critically isn't other people. It's you. You've become both the harsh judge and the nervous performer, trapped in an exhausting cycle of self-consciousness that prevents authentic expression. The breakthrough comes when you start making decisions from your authentic center, rather than from fear of judgment. This doesn't happen overnight. It's a practice of gradually distinguishing between your genuine voice and the internalized critics you've been mistaking for wisdom. Each time you choose authenticity over performance, you strengthen this muscle of self-trust. What makes this approach so revolutionary is that it doesn't require other people to change their opinions of you. It simply requires you to change the weight you give those opinions. When you move through the world as if nobody's watching, you discover something paradoxical. People actually start paying more attention, but for entirely different reasons. They're drawn to the magnetic quality of someone living from their center rather than from fear. If you recognize that phantom audience in your own mind, write in the comments, "Breaking free from imaginary judges." Here's one of the most liberating truths you'll ever encounter. Those people you imagine are constantly judging your every move. They're far too consumed with their own insecurities to spare that much mental energy for you. We live with this persistent illusion that we're the main character in everyone else's story, when in reality, we're barely even background characters in most people's daily thoughts. Think about it. Can you recall what your colleague was wearing 3 days ago? Do you remember the slightly awkward comment your friend made at dinner last month? Are you still thinking about that person who stumbled over their words during a presentation weeks back? Probably not. Yet we agonize over these moments in our own lives, as if they're permanently etched into the collective memory of everyone who witnessed them. This revelation doesn't diminish your importance. It frees you from the exhausting performance of trying to manage everyone's perception. The cosmic joke is that you've been dancing frantically for an audience that wasn't even watching. They were too busy rehearsing their own routines, worrying about their own missteps. Seneca, one of Rome's greatest philosophers, captured this perfectly when he wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." The profound truth hidden in this simple statement is that most people never experience the new beginnings they desperately crave, because they're too terrified to end the exhausting performance they've been putting on for everyone else. The transformation begins When you recognize that the person you are when you're alone, your thoughts, values, desires, and authentic expression is actually the most compelling version of yourself. Not the carefully curated persona you've constructed for public consumption. The journey toward genuine connection with others paradoxically requires first disconnecting from the need for their approval. Behind the scenes of every meaningful life transition is this same pattern: the courage to stop performing and start being. Whether it's changing careers, ending relationships that no longer serve you, or simply speaking your mind without endless qualification, the catalyst is always the same: the decision to prioritize authenticity over approval. What makes this mindset shift so revolutionary is that it doesn't just change how you see yourself, it transforms how others experience you as well. Human beings have a remarkable capacity to sense authenticity. We can feel the difference between someone who is performing and someone who is present, between words chosen to impress and words spoken from conviction. The breakthrough moment comes when you realize that the very approval you've been chasing becomes more accessible when you stop pursuing it so desperately. Not because you've finally perfected your performance, but because you've transcended the need for applause altogether. If you've been exhausting yourself with a performance that no longer feels authentic, write in the comments, "Retiring from the stage." The most profound revelation in this journey comes when you recognize that your harshest critic isn't out there in the world. It's the voice inside your own mind. Through years of absorbing external expectations, subtle criticisms, and cultural messaging, you've installed an internal surveillance system more restrictive than any external authority could ever be. This inner critic works tirelessly, monitoring your every thought, impulse, and action against a standard of perfection that no human could possibly maintain. What makes this dynamic so insidious is how completely it disguises itself. Your fears masquerade as wisdom, your limitations present themselves as practical thinking, and your avoidance of authentic expression gets rationalized as being realistic. The mental prison you inhabit wasn't built by others. You've become your own most vigilant guard, policing the boundaries of what you allow yourself to think, feel, and attempt. The breakthrough begins with a simple yet powerful practice: the reality check. When that familiar wave of anxiety rises at the thought of doing something authentic, pause and ask yourself specifically, whose opinion am I actually worried about? Can I name these people? And why does their judgment matter? More than my authentic expression, this practice creates a crucial separation between genuine concerns and phantom fears. What you'll discover through this inquiry is often surprising. Many times, you can't even name the specific people whose disapproval you're anticipating. Or if you can name them, you'll realize these are people whose opinions wouldn't significantly impact your life. Perhaps acquaintances you rarely see, social media connections who barely know you, or family members whose judgment you've outgrown but still habitually fear. The mindset shift continues with what I call the authentic action test. Before making any decision, ask yourself, am I doing this from my center, my genuine values and desires, or am I doing this to manage someone else's reaction to my life? This single question illuminates whether you're acting from authentic motivation or from the shadow of anticipated judgment. Behind the scenes of every transformative journey is this fundamental reckoning, the moment when you realize that much of what you thought was you is actually an elaborate coping mechanism designed to avoid disapproval. The revelation isn't just intellectual, it's visceral. You feel the difference between choices made from your core versus choices made to prevent criticism. This awakening doesn't happen all at once, but through a series of small, courageous acts. Start with low-risk, authentic actions. Express an opinion you've been holding back. Wear something that makes you feel powerful rather than invisible. Pursue an interest you've been hiding. Each authentic choice strengthens the pathway to the next one. If you're ready to distinguish between your authentic voice and your internalized critics, write in the comments, "Reclaiming my inner authority." One of the most beautiful paradoxes in this journey emerges when you begin moving through the world without seeking approval. People actually start paying more attention to you, but for entirely different reasons than you might expect. There's a magnetic quality to authenticity that no amount of performance can replicate. It's as if humans have a built-in sensor for detecting when someone is operating from their genuine core versus when they're putting on a show. Think about the people who have had the most profound impact on your life. Chances are they weren't the ones desperately trying to impress you or gain your validation. They were the ones who showed up fully as themselves, with their strengths, vulnerabilities, convictions, and unique perspectives intact. Their authenticity created a field of permission around them that allowed you to be more of yourself in their presence. This magnetism isn't about charisma in the conventional sense. It's about the rare quality of congruence, when someone's words, actions, and energy all align with their inner truth. In a world of careful curation and strategic self-presentation, this alignment stands out like a lighthouse on a foggy shore. People are drawn to it because it offers something increasingly scarce, the experience of witnessing someone who isn't exhausting themselves with pretense. The revelation that transforms everything is this: the very approval you've been chasing becomes available to you when you stop performing for it. Not because you've finally perfected your act, but because you've transcended the need for applause altogether. This isn't just philosophical wisdom. It's practical psychology. Research in human behavior consistently shows that we're drawn to those who demonstrate self-validation rather than seeking external validation. Now, let's make this actionable. The journey toward authentic living isn't about making dramatic declarations or overnight transformations. It begins with small, consistent choices that gradually build your authentic courage muscle. Start with low-risk, authentic actions. Take that class you've been considering, even though it doesn't align with your public image. Wear that outfit that makes you feel powerful rather than invisible. Speak up in meetings when you have something valuable to contribute, instead of waiting for the perfect moment. Behind the scenes of every significant personal transformation is this same pattern: incremental, authentic choices that compound over time. Each small act of genuine self-expression strengthens your capacity for the next one. The mindset shift isn't about suddenly becoming fearless. It's about recognizing that authenticity is a practice, something you build through daily decisions to honor your truth rather than manage perceptions. What makes this approach so revolutionary is that it's accessible to everyone, regardless of circumstances. You don't need special resources or permission to begin living more authentically. You just need the willingness to take that first small step away from performance and toward presence. If you're ready to start building your authentic courage muscle through small daily choices, write in the comments, "Small authentic steps, big life change." Now I want to share a liberating truth that has the power to transform your entire approach to relationships. You are not responsible for managing other people's reactions to your authentic self. Let that sink in for a moment. The discomfort someone feels when confronted with your genuine expression isn't your burden to carry. It's their issue to work through. Your only responsibility is to be truthful and kind, not to contort yourself into shapes that make others comfortable. This revelation strikes at the heart of what keeps so many people trapped in exhausting performance cycles. They've taken on the impossible task of trying to control how everyone around them feels about their choices, appearance, opinions, and dreams. Behind the scenes of every unfulfilled life is this same pattern: years spent carefully managing others' emotions at the expense of authentic expression. The hidden cost of this approach is devastating. Every time you dim your light to make someone else comfortable with your brightness, you're not just doing yourself a disservice, you're actually depriving the world of the unique gifts only you can offer. When you consider this from a broader perspective, perhaps the most tragic outcome imaginable would be reaching the end of your life, only to realize you spent your entire existence performing for an audience that wasn't even paying attention. This brings us to Rule 3. Keep your energy expensive. This principle completely transforms how you approach each day. Your energy, mental, emotional, and physical, is the most valuable currency you possess. Yet most people distribute it carelessly, giving it away freely to people and situations that would never invest the same in them. Every morning, you wake up with a finite reserve of this precious resource. The quality of your life is determined largely by how wisely you allocate it. Think about your typical day. How much of your mental bandwidth gets consumed by worrying about problems you can't solve? How much emotional energy dissipates into people who take constantly but never give back? How many hours evaporate scrolling through content that makes you feel inadequate or agitated? These aren't just harmless habits, they're significant withdrawals from your energy account that leave you depleted for the things that actually matter. The transformation begins when you start treating your energy with appropriate reverence. Just as you wouldn't hand out $100 bills to strangers on the street, why would you distribute your attention, concern, and emotional investment without discernment? The mindset shift requires recognizing that being selective about where your energy flows isn't selfish. It's essential for showing up fully for the people and purposes that genuinely deserve your best self. What makes this approach so revolutionary is the profound ripple effect it creates throughout your life. When you treat your energy as precious, everything changes, from the quality of your work to the depth of your relationships. If you've been feeling constantly drained despite getting enough sleep, write in the comments, "Valuing my energy currency." The first step in transforming your relationship with energy is conducting what I call an energy audit. This isn't some abstract concept. It's a practical assessment of where your precious life force is currently flowing. Take a moment right now and reflect honestly. How much of your mental bandwidth is consumed by worrying about problems that might never materialize? How much emotional energy dissipates into relationships with people who consistently take without giving back? How many hours evaporate into endless scrolling that leaves you feeling more depleted than before? How much of yourself gets invested in drama and conflicts that aren't even yours to resolve? If this inventory feels uncomfortable, that's a good sign. Discomfort often precedes awakening. The revelation that changes everything is recognizing just how much of your finite energy is currently being invested in activities and relationships that yield little or no return. This isn't about becoming calculating or cold. It's about becoming intentional with your most precious resource. Marcus Aurelius, who managed the complexities of ruling an empire, understood this principle profoundly when he wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." This wasn't just philosophical musing, it was practical wisdom about energy management. When you spread your attention across worries about the future, regrets about the past, and problems belonging to others, you dilute your power in the only moment you can actually influence, right now. Behind the scenes of every exceptional life is this same fundamental practice, the disciplined focus of energy on what's directly in front of you. The mindset shift occurs when you start treating your energy like the finite resource it truly is. Just as you would carefully allocate a limited financial budget, you begin making conscious decisions about where your attention, emotion, and effort deserve to flow. This approach transforms everything because it introduces intention to what was previously automatic. Instead of reactively responding to whatever demands your attention most loudly, you become the deliberate director of your focus. every decision, from the people you engage with, to the information you consume, to the thoughts you entertain, becomes filtered through a single question. Is this worth my precious energy? What makes this practice so revolutionary is that it doesn't require changing your external circumstances first. You can begin reclaiming your energy regardless of your situation simply by becoming more discerning about what gets access to your mental and emotional space. The transformation happens from the inside out. As you become more selective with your energy investments, your external reality naturally begins to reorganize around these new boundaries. The journey toward energy sovereignty isn't about isolation or selfishness. Paradoxically, when you protect your energy more carefully, you have more quality attention to give to the people and purposes that genuinely matter. Like a focused beam of light rather than scattered rays, your impact deepens when your energy isn't dispersed across 1,000 distractions. If you're realizing how much of your precious energy has been leaking away on things that don't serve your growth, write in the comments, "Reclaiming my power in the present." Now I want to share a powerful practice that will revolutionize how you protect your energy, mastering the clean no. Most people struggle with boundaries because they've been conditioned to believe that saying no requires lengthy justification, apology, or explanation. They tie themselves in knots trying to soften their refusals, often ending up committing to things they don't want to do simply to avoid the discomfort of setting clear limits. The transformation happens when you embrace the power of the unjustified boundary, the clean, straightforward no that stands on its own without defensive elaboration. No, I can't take on that project right now. No, I won't be able to attend that event. No, I don't want to discuss that topic. Period. Full stop. No justification needed. This approach feels radical at first because we've been programmed to believe that our boundaries are only valid if others approve of our reasons. The breakthrough comes when you realize that you don't need permission to protect your energy. Your no is complete and legitimate without explanation, simply because it's your life and your limited resources at stake. Behind the scenes of this practice is a profound mindset shift, moving from seeking external validation for your choices to recognizing your inherent authority to make decisions about your own energy. When you deliver a clean no, you're reclaiming your power from the expectation that you need to defend your boundaries to make them legitimate. What's most surprising about this approach is how others respond. Contrary to the fear that clear boundaries will make you seem cold or selfish, being selective with your energy actually allows you to show up with full presence for the commitments you do make. Instead of being half engaged in 10 different projects, conversations, or relationships, you're completely present for the few that genuinely matter. Think about the people who always seem fully engaged when you interact with them, who make you feel truly seen and heard. They're not the people who say yes to everything. They're the ones who've learned to invest their energy wisely so they can bring their complete attention to what they value most. The quality of their presence comes directly from their willingness to set boundaries elsewhere. This selective approach creates a remarkable ripple effect throughout your life. When you stop dispersing your energy across countless low-return investments, you discover resources you didn't know you had for the high-value areas of your life. Your work gains depth, your relationships develop authenticity, your creative pursuits find momentum, all because you're no longer leaking precious energy into obligations that don't serve your growth. The journey toward energy sovereignty requires consistent practice. Start by identifying one area where you regularly overextend yourself, that committee you joined out of guilt, those social obligations you dread, those requests you accept despite knowing they'll drain you. Practice delivering a clean, kind, but firm no without feeling compelled to justify your decision. If you're ready to reclaim your energy through clear boundaries, write in the comments, "My no doesn't require justification." Now I want to explore a revolutionary approach that can transform your entire relationship with time, attention, and relationships, developing a strategic energy investment plan. Just as financial advisors help you allocate monetary resources for maximum return, you need to become the conscious director of where your mental, emotional, and physical energy flows. Before committing to any new obligation, relationship, or activity, run it through 3 essential filters that will prevent wasteful energy depletion. First, the value filter. Will this add genuine value to my life or the lives of people I truly care about? Not superficial entertainment or distraction, but authentic enrichment. Second, the motivation check. Am I considering this from a place of fear, guilt, or obligation, or from genuine interest and alignment with my values? Our most draining commitments often come from saying yes to things we don't actually want, out of fear of disappointment or rejection. Finally, the opportunity cost question. Is this truly the best use of my limited energy right now, or am I just filling time? These questions might seem simple, but they create a profound shift in how you navigate each day. The transformation happens when every commitment becomes intentional rather than automatic, chosen rather than accepted by default. Behind the scenes of every exceptional life is this same pattern, deliberate curation of where precious energy flows, rather than scattered distribution based on whoever or whatever happens to be demanding attention in the moment. What's most fascinating about this approach is the ripple effect it creates in how others perceive and respond to you. When your energy becomes genuinely expensive, meaning not freely available to every person and situation, something remarkable happens. People begin treating it with greater respect. When you're not always available, your availability becomes valuable. When you don't engage with every drama, your opinion becomes meaningful. When you choose your battles carefully, your support carries genuine impact when offered. This isn't about becoming aloof or inaccessible. It's about creating the conditions where your presence is meaningful rather than expected, where your contributions come from genuine engagement rather than obligation. The mindset shift required is moving from quantity to quality in every domain of your life. Fewer but deeper conversations, fewer but more intentional commitments, fewer but more authentic relationships. The revelation that changes everything is this. Your friends and family don't need a version of you that's always exhausted from overextension. They need someone who shows up with full presence when it matters most. Your work doesn't benefit from scattered attention across 100 tasks. It thrives when you bring focused energy to your highest priorities. Your creative pursuits don't advance through fragmented effort, but through sustained, intentional attention. What makes this approach so powerful is that it's entirely within your control. The world will always make infinite demands on your finite energy. Your power lies in the conscious choice about which of those demands deserve your response. If you recognize how spreading yourself too thin has diminished your impact, write in the comments, quality over quantity in all things. Now we come to the 4th rule that will transform your relationship with the world. Kill the echo chamber. Right now, whether you realize it or not, you're living in a bubble. And I don't mean that as criticism. We all are. The algorithms that determine what content you see, the social circles you've cultivated, even the neighborhoods you frequent, all of these create an environment that primarily reflects back your existing beliefs and preferences. What makes this dynamic so dangerous is how completely it disguises itself. Your echo chamber doesn't announce its presence. It doesn't feel like limitation. It feels like confirmation. Every article that aligns with your worldview, every friend who shares your perspective, every podcast that validates your opinions. These create a powerful illusion of wisdom while actually keeping you ignorant of legitimate alternative perspectives. Think about the last time you encountered an idea that genuinely challenged your thinking. Not just a different opinion on a topic where you already have a stance, but a perspective that made you question your fundamental assumptions. For most people, these encounters are rare. Not because alternative viewpoints don't exist, but because we've unconsciously designed our information environment to filter them out. Socrates, considered the wisest man in ancient Athens, built his entire philosophy around a revolutionary idea that feels almost radical today. The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. While everyone else was certain they had all the answers, he was the only one brave enough to admit he might be wrong. This intellectual humility became the foundation of his profound impact on human thought. Behind the scenes of every genuine intellectual breakthrough is this same fundamental quality, the willingness to question even your most cherished beliefs, to hold your convictions lightly enough that they can evolve when confronted with better information. The mindset shift occurs when you start seeing confident certainty as a warning sign rather than a strength, and begin valuing questions more than answers. The transformation begins when you intentionally seek out perspectives that make you think, not just feel validated. This doesn't mean arguing with strangers on the internet or exposing yourself to toxic viewpoints. It means engaging in good faith with thoughtful people who see the world differently than you do. It means reading books by authors with diverse backgrounds and frameworks. It means asking genuine questions from a place of curiosity rather than preparing your rebuttal while someone else is speaking. What makes this approach so revolutionary is that it doesn't diminish your convictions, it strengthens them. When your beliefs have been tested against their strongest counterarguments and still hold true, they become more resilient. And when they don't hold up to scrutiny, you have the opportunity to refine them into something closer to truth. If you've been feeling intellectually stagnant despite consuming lots of content, write in the comments, "Breaking out of my bubble." Here's a revelation that might feel uncomfortable, but has the power to transform your entire approach to growth. Comfort is the subtle enemy of evolution. When everyone around you thinks the same way, validates the same perspectives, and reinforces the same beliefs, something insidious happens. You stop truly evolving. Instead, you become what I call a sophisticated stagnation, a more articulate, slightly more nuanced version of who you already were, rather than discovering who you could become. This pattern is particularly dangerous because it feels like progress. You're reading books, having discussions, consuming content. But if all of these inputs merely confirm what you already believe, you're not growing, you're just reinforcing. It's like walking on a treadmill while watching a video of a beautiful path. There's movement, there's scenery, but you're not actually traveling anywhere new. The breakthrough moment comes when you recognize that the most significant transformation often happens at the edges of discomfort. Those moments when you encounter ideas that don't neatly fit your existing framework, when you meet people whose experiences challenge your assumptions, when you put yourself in environments where you're not already an expert. These are the catalysts for genuine evolution. Behind the scenes of every profound personal metamorphosis is this same journey. The willingness to step beyond the comfortable bubble of confirmation into the uncertain territory of genuine challenge. Not to abandon your core values, but to refine them through exposure to diverse perspectives. The mindset shift occurs when you start seeking growth over validation, questions over answers, exploration over certainty. Now, I want to introduce the fifth rule that will revolutionize your relationship with the world. Watch, don't react. This principle strikes at the heart of what keeps most people trapped in cycles of emotional turbulence and automatic behavior. Between every stimulus and your response to it lies a space, a moment of potential choice that most people never notice, much less utilize. In that space, that fraction of a second between what happens and what you do about it, lies your greatest power. The quality of your life isn't determined primarily by what happens to you, but by how you choose to respond to what happens. This isn't just philosophical wisdom, it's practical psychology. Those who master this space gain a form of freedom that reactive people never experience. Think about your last strong emotional reaction, perhaps to a critical comment, a traffic situation, or disappointing news. Your immediate instinct was probably to defend, attack, or withdraw. But what if instead of immediately acting on that impulse, you had created space to watch what was happening inside you? What if you had observed your emotional response with curiosity rather than immediately becoming it? The transformation begins when you start treating your immediate reactions as information rather than instructions. When someone says something that triggers anger, instead of automatically expressing that anger, you notice, interesting, I'm feeling angry right now. What's behind that? Is this reaction serving my deeper intentions? This isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about responding from wisdom rather than reacting from conditioning. If you've noticed how quickly your emotions can hijack your best intentions, write in the comments. Creating space between stimulus and response. Epictetus, who understood suffering more intimately than most, captured this wisdom perfectly when he said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This insight feels almost deceptively simple, yet it contains the seed of profound transformation. Watching instead of reacting doesn't mean becoming passive in the face of life's challenges. It means creating a deliberate space between what happens and what you do about it. A space of awareness where wisdom can emerge. This practice revolutionizes your relationship with your emotional landscape. Instead of being constantly hijacked by automatic reactions, you develop what psychologists now call emotional agility, the capacity to experience your feelings without being controlled by them. Your emotional responses become valuable information rather than binding instructions. Anger tells you something needs attention or protection. Fear highlights potential risks. Sadness points to loss that matters. But none of these emotions needs to dictate your next move. Behind the scenes of every emotionally intelligent life is this same fundamental skill, the ability to witness internal states without immediate identification. The mindset shift happens when you stop saying "I am angry" and start recognizing "I am experiencing anger." This subtle linguistic shift creates crucial distance between your essential self and the temporary emotional weather passing through your awareness. The revelation that changes everything is realizing that your reactions often create exactly the situations you're trying to avoid. Reacting with defensiveness when feeling misunderstood typically leads to greater misunderstanding. Responding with aggression when feeling threatened usually escalates conflict. Withdrawing when feeling hurt commonly creates more disconnection. When you learn to watch first and respond second, you interrupt these self-defeating cycles. Now, I want to introduce you to the sixth rule that will completely transform your relationship with achievement and validation. Turn your back on clout. This principle addresses perhaps the most dangerous addiction of our time, the compulsive pursuit of social validation, external approval, and public recognition. In today's hyper-connected world, we've created a peculiar phenomenon where people often spend more time crafting the perfect post about their goals than actually working toward them. Look around, and you'll see entrepreneurs who know more about building their personal brand than building their business. Artists who create more content about their creative process than actual art. Writers who talk about writing more than they write. The most insidious aspect of this dynamic is how it creates the feeling of accomplishment without requiring actual accomplishment. You post about your morning routine and receive validation that you're disciplined. You share a motivational quote and feel wise. You document your workout and feel fit, but feeling like you're doing something and actually doing something exist in completely different dimensions. If you've noticed yourself getting a hit of satisfaction from sharing your intentions rather than from achieving them, write in the comments, "Building in silence, not for show." The Roman philosopher Seneca captured this truth perfectly when he warned, "It is shameful to be weary of inquiry when what we search for is excellent." This insight penetrates to the core of our modern dilemma. When you become more focused on appearing excellent than actually becoming excellent, you've lost your purpose entirely. Your journey gets hijacked by the pursuit of external validation rather than internal growth. The revelation that can completely transform your approach to achievement is recognizing that clout is fundamentally a rigged game. The platforms decide what gets seen. The algorithms decide what gets rewarded. The crowd decides what gets celebrated. You're essentially putting your sense of accomplishment in the hands of systems and people who have no knowledge of your authentic goals, your unique values, or your personal definition of success. This distortion creates a painful irony. The more you chase validation for your work, the less meaningful that work often becomes. You start making decisions based on what will look impressive, rather than what will be genuinely transformative. You choose projects that sound good in your bio, rather than ones that develop real skills. You share struggles that make you look relatable, rather than working through challenges that would actually change your life. Now, we arrive at the seventh and perhaps most powerful rule that will transform your relationship with authentic growth. Protect your comeback story. Right now, while everyone else is focused on broadcasting every aspect of their journey, documenting every small win and setback for public consumption, there's an extraordinary opportunity available to those wise enough to recognize it. The chance to undergo profound transformation in silence, away from the distorting influence of constant feedback and validation. Your comeback story isn't just about recovering from failure or overcoming obstacles. It's about the version of yourself you're becoming when no one is watching. It's about the skills you're developing in private, the character you're building in moments of solitude, the dreams you're nurturing away from the noise of external expectations and premature judgment. Behind the scenes of every remarkable transformation is this same pattern. Significant portions of the journey happen in relative obscurity. The mindset shift occurs when you recognize that there's profound power in privacy. Not because you're hiding something shameful, but because you're protecting something precious. The delicate process of genuine change that can be disrupted by the pressure of constant performance and explanation. The hidden truth that few discuss is that every time you share your goals, your brain gets a hit of dopamine as if you've already achieved them. Every time you explain your process, you lose a bit of the motivation to continue that process. Every time you seek validation for your progress, you become incrementally more dependent on external approval rather than internal drive. If you recognize the power of building something meaningful away from the spotlight, write in the comments, "Nurturing my transformation in private." As we come to the close of this journey together, I'm struck by how the ancient Stoics understood something so fundamental about human nature, that our greatest power isn't found in controlling the external world, but in mastering our internal landscape. The 7 rules we've explored today aren't just philosophical concepts, they're practical tools for creating a life of genuine substance in a world obsessed with appearance. If these ideas have resonated with you, if you've felt that quiet recognition that comes when something speaks to your deeper wisdom, I'd love for you to join our community of people committed to authentic living. Subscribe to continue this journey of exploring timeless wisdom applied to modern challenges. Each video is created with the same intention, to offer something of genuine value that transforms not just what you think, but how you live. The conversation we've had today doesn't have to end here. If these principles have stirred something in you, take a moment to leave a like. Not for the algorithm's sake, but as a signal to others seeking this same path that they've found something worth their attention. And if you've truly resonated with this message, write in the comments. Building my inner citadel in silence. This simple phrase connects you with others walking the same path. I've prepared another exploration that builds naturally from where we've left off today. A deeper dive into how these Stoic principles can transform your daily habits and decisions. Click the video appearing now and continue this journey with me there. The path of authentic growth isn't always easy, but walking it in good company makes all the difference.